Oh my God.
The truck was old and tired, just like the man who drove it. His name was Harold, but nobody cared about his name. He was just another driver on the dusty highway that cut through the empty desert like a scar. The sun was burning hot above him, turning the sky into a pale, washed-out blue. It was the kind of heat that made you want to sleep forever. The kind of heat that made you forget you were alive. Harold's truck was even worse. It was a big metal box on wheels, painted brown with rust spreading across it like a disease. The paint was peeling. The tires were old. The engine made a sound like a dying animal every time it climbed a hill. Inside the truck, in the dark metal cage, the animals didn't care about the truck or the heat or Harold. They only knew one thing. They were afraid. There were 7 animals in the cage that day. An old stallion stood in the corner, his head down, not moving. 2 younger horses had given up trying to escape hours ago. They stood in the darkness with their eyes closed, waiting for whatever came next. But in the back corner, where the light didn't reach, something different was happening. There was a pregnant Mare. Her name had been Bella once. A long time ago, she had belonged to a kind family on a ranch near the mountains. Children had fed her apples. A girl named Sarah had braided ribbons into her mane. Bella had run through green fields and drank clean water from a river. She had been loved. But that was a different life. No, Bella's ribs showed through her coat. Her belly was huge and heavy, with the baby growing inside her. The metal cage was too small for her. She could not lie down properly. She could not turn around. She could barely move. The truck's movement made her lose her balance every few seconds, and each time she fell against the cold metal bars. No one had fed her in 2 days. The other animals did not move. They had learned that moving only made things worse. But Bella was different. Maybe it was because she had once known kindness. Maybe it was because she could feel the baby growing inside her, the baby that would never see the green fields or the river. Maybe it was because she remembered what it felt like to be free. She remembered, and that memory was killing her. Bella began to slam her hooves against the cage. Bang, bang. The sound echoed inside the metal truck like thunder. Harold heard it, but did not care. He had driven this route 100 times. He knew what was waiting at the end. He did not think about it. He did not want to think about it. Thinking made the job harder. Bella did not stop. Her pregnant body was weak, but her spirit was wild. Her eyes were wide with fear and anger, and something else, something that refused to die even in the darkness. She kicked and pushed and threw her body against the metal again and again. The baby inside her moved, frightened by the mother's panic, but Bella did not stop. She could feel something in her chest, something ancient and strong. It was telling her to run. It was telling her to fight. It was telling her to survive. The highway stretched out endlessly ahead. It was the kind of road that went through the middle of nowhere. Empty desert on both sides. No towns for 50 miles. No people. No help. Just dust and heat and the sound of the old truck struggling against the weight of time. But then something happened. The truck hit a pothole. It was not a big pothole. The driver had hit 1,000 like it. But this one was different. This one was deep. This one was angry. The truck bounced hard, and for just a moment, everything inside shook. Boxes fell. The old cage swayed. The latch on the back door, the latch that had been broken for weeks, the latch that Harold kept saying he would fix, the latch finally gave way. The door swung open. For a moment, nothing happened. The other animals did not move. They did not understand what freedom looked like. They had forgotten what it meant. But Bella knew. In that second, when the door opened and bright sunlight poured into the darkness, Bella knew exactly what she had to do. She did not think. She did not hesitate. She ran. Every muscle in her tired body screamed with pain. Her pregnant belly pulled at her. Her weak legs almost failed her. But she jumped toward the opening, her hooves scraping the metal floor, and she threw herself out of the cage into the burning sun. The impact when she hit the highway was hard. She stumbled, almost fell, but her legs kept moving. The truck was still moving. Harold was still driving, still not knowing. Behind her, the cage was empty. The old stallion had not moved. The other horses had not moved. But Bella was moving, and that was everything. She ran into the desert. There was no plan. There was no map. She did not know where she was going. She only knew that she had to run. The sun was burning her skin. The heat was choking her. Her baby was crying inside her body, but she ran. Her hooves flew across the dusty ground. Stones cut at her legs and drew blood, but she did not stop. Behind her, the truck disappeared into the distance. Harold drove on, unaware that something precious had escaped. He did not notice the open door. He did not hear the thunder of hooves disappearing into the desert. He did not know that a mother and her unborn baby had just chosen freedom over whatever waited at the end of the road. Bella ran for hours. The sun moved across the sky, and she kept running. Her breath came in gasps. Her legs were bleeding. Her belly was so heavy that every step felt like climbing a mountain. But something inside her refused to stop. Something inside her knew that death was behind her, and life, true life, was somewhere ahead. The desert was empty and huge and silent. No one saw her running. No one heard her hooves hitting the ground. No one knew that somewhere on a dusty road, in the middle of nowhere, a brave Mare had just become a legend. She had run toward the only thing she knew, hope. And somewhere in that empty desert, hope was waiting to meet her.
60 miles away from the dusty highway, on a piece of land that nobody wanted anymore, there was an old ranch. The ranch had a name once. People used to call it the Sunrise Ranch because the sun would rise over the mountains behind it in the most beautiful way. But that was a long time ago. Now people did not even have a name for it. They just forgot it existed. The ranch was dying. The wooden fence was broken in places. Some posts had fallen over completely. The white paint was gone, leaving only gray, rotting wood. The big barn that used to store hay and saddles and dreams was now half collapsed. The roof had holes in it where the rain came through. The house was small and old, painted in a color that might have been blue once, but now it was just faded and tired like everything else. In the house lived a man named Thomas. He was 73 years old, though his face made him look older. His skin was dark brown from the sun. His hands were rough and scarred from 50 years of working with horses. His hair was white and thin. His eyes were gray like the sky before a storm. He moved slowly now with pain in his joints, and sometimes he forgot why he was walking to a particular place before he got there. Thomas had lived his whole life on this ranch. He was born here when his father owned 200 horses. He learned to ride here when he was 5 years old. He had his first kiss under the big oak tree that still stood near the house. He brought his wife, Margaret, here as a young bride, and she had cried happy tears when she saw the green fields and the strong horses running free. They had made plans to build a big family here, to fill the ranch with children and laughter and life. But life had other plans. Thomas and Margaret had no children. The horses got sick one year and died. Then the prices for horses fell. The land became too dry. Young people moved to the cities where there were jobs and excitement. Banks stopped lending money. The world changed, and the old ranch could not change with it. Margaret died 10 years ago. She got sick in the winter and never got better. Thomas held her hand in the hospital, and she looked at him with sad eyes and said, "I'm sorry about the ranch, Tommy. I'm sorry we could not fill it with babies like we planned." He told her not to talk like that, but he was sorry too. He was sorry about everything. After Margaret died, Thomas stayed on the ranch. He could have sold it. He could have moved away. He could have tried to be happy somewhere else. But he did not. He stayed because staying felt like being close to Margaret. Her clothes were still in the closet. Her books were still on the shelves. Her garden, the one she loved so much, had turned wild with weeds, but he could not bring himself to pull them out. Pulling out the weeds felt like pulling out the last piece of her. Now he only had 2 old horses left. Their names were Daisy and Rose. They were sisters, both older than 12, which was old for horses. They stood in the field and ate grass slowly. They did not run. They did not play. They just stood there, waiting for the end, just like Thomas was waiting. The bank had given him a letter. It said he had until spring. 3 months. After that, they would take the ranch. They would sell it to people from the city who wanted to build houses and shopping centers. The old fence would be torn down. The house would be knocked over. The barn would be destroyed. The big oak tree where Thomas had his first kiss would probably be cut down too. Everything would be gone. Thomas had stopped caring. He sat on the porch every afternoon and watched the sun move across the sky. He drank coffee that was too cold. He did not fix things anymore. He did not clean. He barely ate. His daughter called sometimes, but he did not answer. What would he say? That he was waiting to disappear? That he had lived for 73 years and had nothing to show for it except an old ranch that nobody wanted? He was waiting to die. That was the truth. It was late afternoon when he saw something moving in the dust. At first, Thomas thought it was a dream. His eyes were not good anymore, and sometimes they played tricks on him. But no, something was definitely there, moving slowly through the desert toward his broken fence. It was a horse, but this was no horse from around here. Thomas could see that even from far away. This horse was running from something. This horse was hurt. This horse was desperate. Thomas stood up slowly, his old bones creaking like old wood. He walked toward the fence without thinking. His legs moved on their own, like they remembered what it meant to move with purpose. As he got closer, he could see the horse more clearly. It was a mare. It was pregnant, very pregnant. Its body was covered in dust and blood. Its eyes were wild and confused. The mare saw Thomas and stopped. For a moment, they both stood there, looking at each other. The old man and the young horse. The one who was dying and the one who was running for her life. The one who had forgotten hope and the one who was still fighting for it. Something passed between them in that moment. It was like they could see each other's pain, like they understood. The mare's breathing was heavy and fast, but when she looked at Thomas, something changed in her eyes. The fear did not go away, but something softer appeared. Trust. Hope. A question that said, "Are you safe?" Thomas moved slowly toward the gate. His hands were shaking. His heart was beating fast, faster than it had beaten in years. He opened the gate slowly, speaking in a voice so soft it was almost a whisper. "Easy, girl," he said. "Easy. You are safe now." The mare walked through the open gate. She did not run. She did not try to escape into the desert. She walked to Thomas like she had been looking for him her whole life. When she was close enough, Thomas reached out his old, scarred hand and touched her neck. Her skin was warm and wet with sweat. Thomas closed his eyes. For the first time in 10 years, he felt something he had forgotten existed inside him. He felt needed. He felt like maybe, just maybe, there was still a reason to wake up in the morning. The first night was the longest night of Thomas's life. He did not sleep. He sat in the shelter next to the mare, watching her every breath, listening to every sound she made. The shelter was just an old wooden structure he had built years ago when he still had horses to care for. It had a roof and 3 walls. The fourth side was open, so he could watch the horses. It was not fancy, but it was safe. It was dry. It was better than the desert. The mare lay down on the hay Thomas had spread across the floor. She was exhausted. Her body was shaking with tiredness and fear. Her pregnant belly rose and fell with each breath. Thomas could see her ribs showing through her skin. He could see how thin she was, how much pain she was in. She had run for hours through the desert heat, and her body was barely holding together. But she was alive. Thomas sat next to her on an old wooden bench that Margaret had painted blue a long time ago. He did not say anything for a long time. He just sat there, watching the mare. Around them, the desert was quiet. The wind had stopped. The sun had gone down, and the stars were starting to come out. They were so bright, you could see them reflected in the mare's eyes. "You are safe now, girl," Thomas finally whispered. "I do not know where you came from, but you are safe here." The mare's ears moved toward his voice. She did not know his words, but she knew his tone. She knew that this voice was not angry. This voice was not trying to hurt her. This voice was kind. That was all she needed to know. Her eyes closed slowly, and she fell into sleep. Real sleep. Not the broken sleep of fear, but the deep sleep of someone who had finally found safety. Thomas stayed awake the whole night. The next morning, Thomas woke up with a plan. It was the first real plan he had made in years. For so long, he had just moved through the days without thinking. But now his mind was sharp. His hands wanted to work. His heart wanted to do something that mattered. He started by building the Mare a better shelter. Thomas went to the barn and pulled out old wood and nails he had saved for years, thinking he would use them someday. That someday had come. He worked slowly because his back hurt and his hands got tired, but he worked. He cut wood. He hammered nails. He built walls to protect the Mare from the wind. He built a roof that would keep out the rain. His daughter had stopped visiting years ago, but even if she had been there, she would not have recognized her father. This man who worked with purpose. This man whose eyes were bright with something that looked like life. It took him 2 days to finish the shelter. By the time he was done, he was exhausted. His hands were bleeding in new places. His back was screaming with pain. But the shelter was good. It was strong. It would keep the Mare and her baby safe when the baby came. That was what mattered. Every morning, Thomas woke up before sunrise. He would limp to the well and pull up fresh water. He would fill the bucket and carry it to the Mare. She would drink deeply, and he would watch her, making sure she had enough. Then he would bring her hay. Not the old, dried hay from the barn, but the best hay, the hay he had been saving. Thomas had started keeping some money aside years ago, just in case. He never knew what the money was for. Now he knew. He took some of the money to town and bought fresh grain. He bought vegetables. He bought medicine for the cuts on the Mare's legs. Every day, he would clean the wounds. He would use warm water and cloth, working slowly and gently so he did not hurt her. The Mare would stand still while he worked, trusting him completely. Some of the cuts were infected, and Thomas would clean them carefully, talking to the horse the whole time. "This will help you heal, girl," he would say. "I know it hurts, but we have to keep it clean. We have to take care of you and your baby." The Mare would turn her head and look at him while he worked. Sometimes she would rest her head on his shoulder. But the most important thing Thomas did was talk. Every afternoon, he would sit in the shelter next to the Mare, and he would talk. He told her about Margaret. He told her about how they had met at a dance when they were young. He told her how Margaret had laughed so hard at his jokes that she could not breathe. He told her about the gardens Margaret had planted and how beautiful the flowers were every spring. "She would have loved you," Thomas said one afternoon, his voice cracking with emotion. "She would have given you apples. She would have braided your mane. She would have loved your baby so much." The Mare listened. She did not judge. She did not try to make him stop being sad. She just listened, and somehow, that made it easier. Thomas told her about his daughter and how he had failed her by holding onto the ranch too long. He told her about his father and the dreams they had when Thomas was young. He told her about all the horses that had died on the ranch and how he had never been able to save them. "But I will save you," he whispered. "I will save you and your baby. I promise." One day, Thomas realized he had not thought about death in 3 weeks. He was too busy living. He was too busy taking care of the Mare, watching her grow stronger every day. He was too busy planning for the baby that would come soon. He was too busy feeling needed. The Mare had stopped being afraid. She would wait by the fence in the morning, watching for Thomas. When she saw him, she would make a soft sound, not a neigh, but something quieter, something private, something that sounded like love. Thomas decided to give her a name. He had called her girl for weeks, but she deserved a real name. He sat in the shade of the old oak tree, the tree where he had kissed Margaret, and he thought about what to call her. Then he knew. "Your name is Promise," he said, running his hand down her neck. "Because you promised me that I was not done yet. You promised me that I still have reasons to wake up. You promised me that there is still time to do something good in this world." The Mare, Promise, rested her head against his chest. Inside her belly, the baby kicked. Thomas felt it, and he began to cry. But these were not tears of sadness. These were tears of hope. These were tears of a man who had been lost and had been found. These were tears of love. "I will protect you both," Thomas whispered. "For as long as I live, I will protect you." That is my promise." Thomas felt it in his bones before he saw it in the sky. It was late afternoon, and the air felt wrong. The heat that had been burning all day suddenly stopped. The wind changed direction. The birds that usually sang in the evening went silent. Even Daisy and Rose, the two old horses, came and stood by the fence nervously, their ears pointed toward the desert. Something was coming. Thomas looked at the horizon and saw it. A dark cloud, massive and angry, moving toward the ranch from the north. It looked like the sky was breaking open. It looked like the world was ending. Thomas knew about desert storms. He had lived on the ranch his whole life. He knew that these storms could be violent. They could destroy things. They could kill things. But he had never been afraid of storm before. Not the way he was afraid now. Because Promise was going to give birth soon. The baby was coming. Thomas could see it in the way Promise moved. She was restless and uncomfortable. She would lie down and then stand up. She would pace back and forth in the shelter. She was having pain in her belly. Her time had come, and Thomas knew it. "No," he said to the sky. "Not today. Please, not during the storm." But the sky did not listen. Thomas worked fast. He brought Promise inside the shelter and closed it up as much as he could. He brought extra hay. He brought water. He brought blankets, old blankets that Margaret had made years ago, soft and warm. He prepared everything he could think of, but his hands were shaking the whole time. He was afraid, not just for the baby, but for Promise. He knew that giving birth was dangerous. He knew that sometimes horses died during birth. He knew that sometimes babies did not make it. And if something happened to Promise, if he lost her now, after these weeks of caring for her, he did not think he could survive it. The wind started blowing harder. The storm was getting closer. The first lightning came at sunset. It lit up the desert in white light, bright and terrifying. Thunder followed seconds later, so loud it felt like the world was shaking. The wind began to push against the shelter, testing the walls, trying to find a way inside. The roof creaked with the pressure. Promise was in pain. She lay down on the hay, breathing hard. Her body was shaking. Thomas sat next to her, his hand on her neck, talking to her in a soft voice. "I am here, girl," he said. "I'm not going to leave you. No matter what happens, I'm going to stay right here with you." Promise's eyes were wide with fear and pain. She did not understand what was happening to her body. She only knew that it hurt and that she was scared. The storm outside was loud and violent, and inside, her own body was fighting her. But when she looked at Thomas, she saw something that calmed her a little. She saw someone who would not leave, someone who cared. The contractions came closer together. Thomas had helped with horse births before, long ago when he was younger and the ranch was full of animals. But it had been so many years. His hands felt clumsy. He was not sure if he was doing the right things. But he tried. He encouraged Promise to stand up. He helped her walk slowly around the shelter when the pain came in waves. "Just breathe, girl," he whispered. "Just breathe. Your baby is coming. Your baby is almost here." The storm became worse. The wind was screaming now, like something alive and angry. The rain came in heavy sheets, and some of it found its way through cracks in the wooden walls. Lightning was almost constant, followed by thunder that seemed to shake the whole shelter. Thomas thought about the old barn, and he hoped it would not blow over. He thought about the house, and he hoped the roof would hold. But mostly he thought about Promise. She was in real labor now. The baby was coming. Thomas could feel it. With each contraction, Promise pushed harder. Her whole body was working toward one thing, bringing her baby into the world. The pain was written all over her face, but there was something else too. There was strength. There was determination. There was a wild, ancient power that had nothing to do with her thin body or her weakness. This was the power of motherhood. "Come on, girl," Thomas said, his voice breaking with emotion. "You can do this. You are the strongest horse I have ever known. You can do this." Lightning flashed, and in that white light, Thomas thought about the truck. He thought about how close Promise had come to never getting here. How close she had come to never having this moment. How close she had come to never meeting him. He held her neck tighter. "I will not let anything happen to you," he whispered. "I swear it. I will protect you and your baby with my last breath." It was midnight when the foal came. The storm was still raging outside, but But inside the shelter, something miraculous was happening. Promise pushed one more time, and suddenly, the baby was there, wet and small and perfect. The foal was covered in fluid, and for a moment, it did not move. Thomas's heart stopped. "Come on, baby," he said urgently. "Come on, breathe." And then the foal coughed. The baby gasped its first breath, and Thomas felt tears streaming down his face. The foal was breathing. The foal was alive. And Promise, strong, brave, beautiful Promise, she had made it. She had survived. Promise immediately began to clean her baby, licking the wet coat, making sure the foal was real. The foal tried to stand on legs that seemed too long and too weak. It fell down. It tried again. It fell again. But the third time it stayed up. The baby was shaking, not used to having legs or gravity or the world, but it was standing. And within minutes, it was looking for its mother's milk. It found it, and it began to drink. Thomas sat back against the wall and cried. He cried because the baby was alive. He cried because Promise was alive. He cried because he had helped bring new life into the world. He cried because for the first time in 10 years, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the shelter, there was warmth and safety and new life. Thomas looked at Promise and her baby, and he understood something profound. He was not alone anymore, and he never would be again. The old rancher sat there all night, watching the mother and baby sleep in the hay, listening to the storm slowly move away. His hand rested gently on Promise's neck. His heart, which had been broken for so long, was finally beginning to heal. The morning after the storm was quiet and clean. The sun rose slowly over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The wind had stopped. The rain had passed. The desert was calm again, as if the storm had never happened at all. But everything had changed. Thomas woke up as the sun touched his face. He was still sitting against the wall of the shelter, his hands still resting on Promise's neck. His back was stiff. His legs were numb, but he did not move. He did not want to break the spell of this moment. In the soft morning light, he could see Promise clearly. She was awake, looking at her baby with eyes full of love. The foal was sleeping, its small body rising and falling with each breath. It was a girl. Thomas could see that now in the daylight. She had the same dark eyes as her mother. She had a white mark on her forehead shaped like a star. She was the most beautiful thing Thomas had ever seen. "You made it," Thomas whispered to Promise. "You both made it." Promise turned her head and looked at him. She made a soft sound, that private, quiet sound that meant love. Thomas stood up slowly, his old bones creaking. He went to the well and brought fresh water. He brought hay. He brought grain. He sat with them while they ate, and he watched the baby sleep. He did not think about the bank. He did not think about spring. He did not think about anything except this moment, this shelter, this mother and baby. He had forgotten how to be happy. Now he remembered. The next day, Thomas needed to get medicine. Promise had given birth, but her legs were still injured from the escape. They needed to be checked. The baby needed to be examined. Thomas could not do these things alone. He had to go to town. He walked to the road for the first time in weeks. It took him almost an hour, but he made it. He stood on the dusty highway and put up his thumb. When a truck stopped, the driver took one look at him and asked if he was okay. "I need a doctor," Thomas said. "A veterinarian. For a horse." The driver was curious. "You got horses again? I heard you lost most of them years ago." "I have one now," Thomas said. And then something made him tell the truth. She was on a slaughter truck. She escaped. She came to me. The driver's eyes got big. The veterinarian's name was Sarah Chun. She was young, maybe 30 years old, with smart eyes and quick hands. She drove out to the ranch with Thomas. And when she saw Promise and the foal, she made a sound like she was going to cry. "This is incredible," she whispered. "Do you know what this means? This horse escaped from a slaughter facility. The journey she made, she should not have survived. And she gave birth in the middle of a storm. This is miraculous." Sarah examined Promise carefully. She checked the foal. She gave Thomas medicines and instructions. But while she worked, she kept shaking her head in wonder. "How did you find her?" she asked. Thomas told her the story. He told her about the open door on the truck. He told her about the mare running through the desert. He told her about sitting on the porch waiting to die, and then Promise appearing like a gift from heaven. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I want to help," she said. "I want to make sure they are okay. Will you let me come back? Will you let me be part of this?" Thomas did not know what to say, so he just nodded. Sarah came back the next day, and the day after that. She brought her own supplies. She helped Thomas care for Promise. She helped with the baby. But more than that, she told people. She told the local news station about the pregnant mare who escaped the slaughter truck. She told animal shelters. She told farmers. She told everyone who would listen. The story spread like wildfire through the empty towns. People started coming to the ranch. They came in cars and trucks. They came to see the miracle horse and her baby. They brought apples and carrots. They brought blankets and hay. They wanted to meet Thomas, the old man who had saved them. Thomas did not know how to handle it at first. He was not used to people, but he saw how they looked at Promise and her foal. He saw the hope in their eyes. He saw tears on their faces. He understood that Promise was not just his horse anymore. She belonged to everyone. A month later, a man named David came to the ranch. He was a lawyer from the city. He told Thomas that he had heard the story and wanted to help. He had connections to animal sanctuaries. He had connections to banks. He wanted to save the ranch. "This place is special," David said. "Your story is special. Let me help." Thomas did not believe it at first, but David was serious. He worked with the bank. He worked with the animal shelter. Within 3 months, everything had changed. The bank forgave the debt. An animal sanctuary wanted to help care for Promise and her foal, but not take them away. Thomas would still be their main caregiver. The ranch would become a place where rescued horses could come to heal. Sarah would work there as the veterinarian. Young people from the city would volunteer on weekends, learning about horses and nature and kindness. The ranch would live again. Thomas's daughter called one afternoon. "Dad," she said, her voice shaking. "I saw the news. Is it true? Did you really save that horse?" "She saved me," Thomas said simply. There was silence on the phone. Then his daughter began to cry. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry I left. I'm sorry I stopped calling. I want to come home, Dad. Can I come home?" "Yes," Thomas said. "Come home." 6 months after Promise arrived, the ranch was full of life. There were volunteers working in the fields. There were other rescued horses in the pastures. The barn had been repaired. The house had been painted. The fence was being rebuilt. And at the center of it all were Promise and her foal, who Thomas had named Miracle. Thomas was 74 now, but he looked younger. His back did not hurt as much. His eyes were bright. He woke up every morning with purpose. Every morning, he would go to the shelter and spend time with Promise and Miracle. One afternoon, Sarah found him sitting in the shelter, just watching the horses. "You know what I think?" Sarah said. "I think you saved each other." Thomas looked at Promise. The horse was strong now. Her wounds had healed. Her coat was shiny and healthy. She was happy, but it was more than that. Promise had brought Thomas back to life. She had given him a reason to wake up. She had reminded him that he was worthy of love. "The desert has a way of keeping secrets," Thomas said quietly. "But sometimes it tells the world about miracles." He reached out and touched Promise's neck. "Some people think I am the hero of this story," Thomas continued. "But they are wrong. Promise is the hero. She was the one who fought. She was the one who ran. She was the one who refused to give up. She was the one who taught me how to live again." Promise turned her head and rested it on Thomas's shoulder, the same way she had done 100 times before. "Loyalty never dies," Thomas whispered. "True bonds outlive everything, even death, even time, even a broken heart that thinks it will never beat again." The old ranch became famous. People came from all over to see the horse that had escaped the impossible. They came to meet Thomas, the old man who had learned to love again. They came to see Miracle, the foal born in the storm. They came to understand that sometimes, when two lost souls find each other, they can change the world. And every evening, at sunset, Thomas would sit in the shelter with Promise and Miracle, watching the sky turn gold, knowing that Margaret was watching too, knowing that his daughter was finally home, knowing that the ranch, the place he had wanted to abandon, had become a place where miracles happened. The desert had not forgotten the Sunrise Ranch. It had simply been waiting for the sun to rise again. Sparkles the end.